It's in the middle of a pandemic. I'm sitting on the couch, reading newspapers, watching stuff online, watching television, and I see this ad, Ancestry.com, $69.99. I was kind of intrigued. Learn about your history. I thought learning about your history was something for rich people. You know, that Henry Louis Gates guy? You know, that was stuff for Julia Roberts. That was stuff for Oprah Winfrey. But me, my turn, for me to learn about my history. Looking back, when I was maybe 7 or 8, I would look in the phone book just to see names if they were related to me. Many times I would go to my mom and dad and say, hey, are these people related to me? Sometimes they go, yeah. Sometimes they go, no. And sometimes they'll just change the whole other subject because they didn't really know. But this time, you know what? I'm gonna take it on myself to be able to find out who I am. So what I decided to do is put that $69.99 on my credit card and find out who I really am today. I called my mother and I said, Mom, I'm gonna take this DNA test. You know what she said to me? Son, do you know what the government can do with that in your DNA? You know what they do to people, especially black people? They use it. And I go, Mom, you're actually right. Think about it. Henrietta Lacks in the 1950s in Johns Hopkins University. Also think about Tuskegee and the Tuskegee experiment in the 1930s. These are true things that have happened to African Americans while they're using their DNA. But my mom saw the curiosity in my face and my voice, and she said, all right, send me a kit. Next up was my dad. He said, you know what, son, in a joking way, you should let sleeping dogs lie. Really, confusion and trust are things that you're gonna have to let go. And he said, I'm not gonna be outdone by your mother. I'm gonna take that test as well. 4 weeks later, I get the kit. And what I do is I open it up and I look at it and I see a little cup. And guess what? I spit in it. So what I have to do next is the next thing is bring it back into the post office, seal it up, and send it back to the Ancestry.com laboratory. So I seal it up and send it, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. 9 weeks later, I get a result inside of my email. So I open the app, and I see names that I do know and names that I don't know. So I call my dad on the phone and say, Dad, do you know this name? He said, oh, that's Aunt so-and-so. Oh, that's Uncle so-and-so. But you know what? From finding out from my dad's DNA, I found out some really cool things about my family. My cousin, he was a Lindy Hop dancer in the 1940s in Harlem. Can you believe that? Another thing I found out is that my great-grandfather, he was a poet in 1921, and he was in the first book of Negro poetry. And also, I also found out my great-great-uncle was the founder of St. James African Orthodox Church in Boston, and he was a proud Marcus Garvey follower of that black nationalist. Whoa, I was very proud of that. So what I decided to do was scurry onto my mom's side, and I look, and I just saw my grandfather's name. No great-grandfather, all these other things, it was just there. So I asked my mom again, what's the deal? And I just remember the stories growing up. You know, I always heard that my great-grandfather was a traveling salesman. And I also heard that my great-grandmother died while giving birth to him. And he was actually raised by my Aunt Lucy, who lived in Virginia. That was a story that I heard. But you know what? I had to go on a treasure hunt, and I had to find out this information, who my great-grandfather was. So what I decided to do is I got on the internet, and I scurried, and then I found the missing ingredient. I found him. He was a block away, his records, from Atlanta, where I was living. His birth certificate was in the Fulton County Records Office. And you know what else I found out? Is that he was born on the Hurd Plantation in Georgia. Can you believe it? My mom's maiden name was Hurd. With this information, I was kind of aghast. And so 3 weeks later, I was going to Thanksgiving with all my family members there. And so I decided to stand up and let them know right before we said grace, I have the family secret. I'm ready to tell everybody. You know, my uncle stood to me and looked at me and said, I don't want to know. What do you mean you don't want to know? I did all this research. I don't want to know. So my mother whispers over to me and says, Chip, you're gonna have to respect his wishes. But after some good old cake and good old apple pie and ice cream and a little bit of rum, the family kind of called around Uncle and said, come on, we all want to know. And he gave a nod of improvement and said, okay. We always thought our family is from Virginia. No, no, no. We are from a plantation in Georgia mixed with slavery. Wow. We were taken aback by that. So today, I now sit on the City of Boston's Reparation Task Force, and my job is to connect community members with the stories of the past. And I have learned discovering your past is the way to heal the future. Thank you.